Move over, baby boomers. You're no longer the top dog in the U.S. Millennials are now the largest segment of the population, according to a recent analysis of census data from 2015. So, who are they? A millennial generally falls between the ages of 18 and 34. There are now about 75 million young people in that age bracket. They're also known, at least some are, as the boomerang generation, and for good reason. The Pew Research Center found that living with parents now edges out all other living arrangements for millennials. This was the first time this had happened in 130 years. Massachusetts ranked 9th highest nationally for the percent of young people who moved home. We asked a bunch of them why they think this is happening.
I'd have to say it's really hard to move out due to expenses.
It is much harder to find a place to live than I imagine it used to be in the past.
Either you live with your parents and you're able to save some change, or you're living off credit cards and just trying to balance everything out.
It's been hard to find a steady job in the field which I studied at university. And my mom's cooking is better than mine, so.
That's at least one honest guy out there. But this really isn't a joking matter. These kinds of broad-based social changes affect all of us, including when baby boomers retire and try to sell a house and can't. Joining me are Ellen Broughton, Director of Mass General's Learning and Assessment Program and parent of 2 millennial-aged children. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And Kyle Claus, who writes for Boston Magazine. Kyle, it's great to see you again. So I don't know if this is a confidence out, but when she met you, she turns to you and says, "So, you living at home?" And so the answer is you're not, but you were, correct?
I did for a brief time, yeah.
Why?
It was cheaper. I mean, I was fresh out of BU. I was living in an awful apartment on Peterborough Street. I was working part-time, one journalism job. I was selling cupcakes on the side. And it just got to the point where I thought, what am I doing here? So I went back home to rural Pennsylvania, and I regrouped.
But then you left pretty quickly, right?
Thank goodness, yeah.
Why'd you leave?
Why'd I leave?
Why'd you leave
I got
home?
a job at the Lowell Sun.
Okay, fair enough. So you had 2 kids who moved home, are now
I
gone.
did.
Why'd they move in? Why'd they move out?
2 very different reasons. My daughter had graduated from college and didn't have a job when she finished, so she stayed home for about 4 or 5 months until she found a job in New York City. And then my son he's changed schools a number of times, comes home during the summers or during transitions from one school to the next.
So the Pew Research thing basically said there are 2 causes. One is people getting married much later. But let's put that's sort of a back thing. The primary one is economic. So is this a sign, I mean, you look at these kinds of things, is moving back home a sign of failure, or is it some creative economic strategy like this guy exercised?
I think it's part that. I also think in my work that I do as a psychologist, I see that families are closer in some ways. I also think that there's less of a division between childhood and adulthood, so that line is a little more fluid. So kids don't necessarily have to jump into adulthood like it was when I was younger, where you couldn't wait to be an adult. Now it's fine to be with your parents because you're close to your parents.
Now, I mean, by the way, there's a researcher from Clark University in Worcester said a variation on what you said. I think it's a great thing overall that there's this wonderful closeness between parents and emerging adults, which I guess means a young person. And I really think it's unprecedented in human history. Was it a wonderful thing? Was this closeness a wonderful thing for you for 2 months?
Well, I've always been close with my parents. I call them every day, but I have very supportive family, and so when I came home, my dad set up, we have an unfinished basement, set up a folding table and said, "Go ahead, this is your HQ."
You're who Hillary Clinton was talking about the other day, that fundraiser, exactly, yes.
But I definitely think there are economic benefits to it. I think the barriers to entry for the American dream are so much higher now. I mean, the cost of a college degree is higher than ever. Housing costs, most people in metropolitan areas are spending more than half their income on rent. Yeah. And when you stack all that up against you, you really staying home makes more sense.
Well, that's for you, but let's go to the other side of the spectrum, the parent. You know, the average middle-class parent who lets the kid, I assume most would let the kid come home. It may be financially wonderful for him. It's not so wonderful for the parent, particularly if they're approaching retirement, that sort of thing, right?
That's absolutely true. Parents are making different kinds of decisions about their own lives, putting off buying a smaller house or downsizing. I had a friend just the other day who said to me, I'm not selling our house and downsizing until my child turns 30, just in case he wants to come home. So there are decisions that people are making that can affect them financially negatively.
I have to say, I've been back and forth on this whole kind of thing and for a whole variety of reasons. But it seems to me, as long as there's like a fixed time or a reasonable time, and you use it sort of like a bridge thing, like I guess your kids, it's fine. But it seems to me For those who stay longer, the downside is, to me, there's nothing more important than independence. My position used to be, and I think it's pretty close to this, you couldn't afford your apartment, so live with 11 people in an apartment, as long as you're out on your own. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but there's some merit to what I'm saying, no?
There is some merit, because really independence is valued in our culture, and it's also what we all strive for. And so it does maybe impede that ability to be more independent.
Well, especially if you know now, as he's sighing, as we're talking about him, I mean, you could go back again if you hit rough stuff. Boston Magazine decided they didn't like your work and they canned you tomorrow. Which
Any
of
day
course,
now, yeah.
Well, no, I'm
Oh,
serious.
no.
It's just a matter of minutes. But the fact that you know I could go back to wherever it is in Pennsylvania, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a great luxury. I wish I knew that. That's something I would tell Kyle Kloss-Circa a couple years ago. Like, you can go home. It's so much harder to find a good job and a good place to live when you're just trying to keep your head above water. And given that I had this great luxury of parents who were more than welcoming to have me back home.
So you'd do it again?
I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Would you let your two kids
Oh,
back
absolutely,
in?
if
You
they
would?
need
You
to,
weren't happy
yes.
when they left?
A little bit maybe, but
Yeah.
more because I'm happy that they're independent, rather than not that they're
Give me the
independent.
number one rule of coexistence between a kid and their parents. What's the number one deal you have to
For
strike
me,
when
it
they
would
move back
be
in?
friends in the house and parties, being considerate of your parents.
Fine. She's nodding her head like she had some experiences. How about you?
Stay in the basement.
Yeah, almost the same thing.
Nice
Yeah,
to meet you.
nice to
Thank
meet
you so much, Kyle. It's great to see you.
pleasure.
Be well, both of you.